Vítám vás všechny v Pražském kongresovém centru. Prosím, zaujměte svá místa, abychom mohli začít. Dámy a pánové, když se nad tím hlouběji zamyslíme, tak žijeme v současnosti v poněkud matoucí, riskantní a také trochu turbulentní době, která si žádá odvážné myšlenky a taky chladnou hlavu. Senzační nové technologie nám v budoucnu nepochybně přinesou obrovské možnosti rozvoje. Pokud je ale nebude doprovázet podobně kurážná a také inovativní společenská, ekonomická a prostorová evoluce, tak budou horší než nic. A právě v tomhle kontextu mají potraviny a jídlo co nabídnout. V tomto digitálním věku se nám může zdát, že ztrácíme třeba půdu pod nohama, jenomže přesto nás potraviny nohama pevně na zemi drží. Způsob naší budoucí obživy bude formovat osud nejenom náš, ale i všech ostatních živočišných druhů. Pokud si nebudeme vážit potravin, tak to nebude dobré. Pokud si jich vážit budeme, tak můžeme najít znovu životní rovnováhu v rámci přírodního světa, můžeme si společně budovat naplňující život a právě potravinové plánování je v současnosti jednou z nejrychleji rostoucích oblastí zemědělství, ale nejenom této sféry, urbanismu nebo také regionálního designu. Dámy a pánové, dovolte mi, abych vás všechny přivítala na prvním dni Mezinárodní vědecké konference s názvem European Agri-Food Sustainability. Je oficiální akcí českého předsednictví v Radě Evropské unie a koná se za podpory Evropského úřadu pro bezpečnost potravin. Dámy a pánové, dovolte mi, abych přivítala ministra zemědělství České republiky, pana Zdeňka Nekulu. Dobrý den. A vítám pochopitelně vás všechny vzácné zahraniční i tuzemské hosty a odborníky, jejichž příspěvky nás v následujících hodinách a dnech čekají. Ona celá společnost se stále více zajímá o to, co jí. Lidé v dnešní době víc než kdy jindy začínají chápat důsledky, které má na jejich zdraví i celkové zdraví planety něco tak na první pohled banálního, jako je snídaně, oběd a večeře. Ale principy trvale udržitelného rozvoje umožnily během několika let zásadní změnu v chápání ochrany životního prostředí, které není už jenom okrajovým zájmem, ale je naopak neoddělitelnou součástí mnoha státních politik. A politická rozhodnutí budou právě v této dramatické době skutečně klíčová, protože ovlivní budoucnost celého systému na mnoho let dopředu. Dámy a pánové, teď už mi dovolte, abych sem pozvala a požádala o pár zahajovacích slov pana ministra Zdeňka Nekulu.
Dobrý den, vážené dámy, vážení pánové. Dovolte mi, abych vás přivítal v Praze, zde v Kongresovém centru. Chtěl bych poděkovat všem přednášejícím, že přijali pozvání na tuto konferenci a vám všem, že jste přijeli také a máme zde docela pěknou hojnou účast. Tuto mezinárodní vědeckou konferenci, která je pořádána u příležitosti českého předsednictví v Radě EU Ministerstvem zemědělství České republiky za podpory Evropského úřadu pro bezpečnost potravin, bychom chtěli upozornit na křehkost evropského potravinářsko-zemědělského řetězce a současně na potenciál vývoje, který dokáže potravinovou soběstačnost Evropské unie posílit. Ačkoliv potravinové zabezpečení v Evropské unii není přímo ohroženo, pro členské státy Evropské unie se stává stále větším problémem zajištění cenově dostupných potravin. Mnoho zemí se stále potýká s přetrvávajícími důsledky COVID-19. Navíc ruská agrese vůči Ukrajině vedla k eskalaci cenových šoků na světových trzích, ať je to s potravinami, energiemi, ale i hnojivy. To vše dále zhoršuje neutěšenou situaci v oblasti potravinového zabezpečení v mnoha zemích světa, a to zejména v třetích zemích. Nedostatek komodit nebo dodávek surovin navíc způsobuje značné inflační tlaky. Vzhledem k tomu, že světová populace neustále roste, je naléhavě zapotřebí mnohem více úsilí a inovací k udržitelnému zvýšení zemědělské produkce, zlepšení celosvětového dodavatelského řetězce, snížení potravinových ztrát a plýtvání a zajištění přístupu k výživným potravinám všem lidem, trpícím jak hladem, anebo podvýživou. V roce 2021 bylo hladem postiženo až 828 milionů lidí. To je o 46 milionů více než v roce 2020 a o 150 milionů více než v roce 2019. Tento alarmující trend pokračuje i v letošním roce. Nedostatek potravin má nejen přímé, ale i nepřímé důsledky, jako je politická nestabilita, konflikty a migrace z postižených regionů. Evropská unie zažívá možná nejnáročnější období ve své historii, a to z hlediska migrace, konfliktů a vysídlování. Z výzkumu Úřadu Vysokého komisaře OSN pro uprchlíky vyplývá, že kvůli katastrofám souvisejícím s klimatem by se mohl do roku 2050 zdvojnásobit počet lidí, kteří ročně potřebují humanitární pomoc, a to až na 200 milionů lidí. Pro zajištění udržitelné zemědělské a potravinářské produkce v Evropské unii, která významnou měrou přispívá k celosvětovému zabezpečení potravinami, je třeba zachovat její životaschopnost a konkurenceschopnost. Vzhledem k ambicím Evropské unie výrazně snížit zemědělské vstupy v souladu se strategiemi od spotřebitele na vidličku a strategii k biodiverzitě, to bude obrovská výzva jak pro zemědělce a výrobce potravin, tak pro dodavatele zemědělských vstupů v celé Evropské unii. Cílem EU je především snížit používání pesticidů v zemědělském sektoru o 50 % do roku 2030. To bude znamenat velký tlak na zemědělce, kteří čelí řadě nových škůdců a chorob přicházejících na území Evropské unie z jiných kontinentů v souvislosti s klimatickou změnou a globalizací obchodu. Již dnes je kvůli snižující se nabídce účinných látek rostlinná výroba v Evropské unii stále obtížnější. Zatímco řada producentských zemí ve světě se nesnaží snižovat množství používaných pesticidů a dokonce umožňuje používat látky, které nejsou v Evropské unii povoleny, čímž vytváří konkurenční výhodu pro svou produkci. Proto musí Evropská unie uplatňovat komplexní přístup k ochraně rostlin proti škůdcům a chorobám a podporovat technologický a vědecký pokrok v oblasti zemědělství. Zemědělství zaznamenává stejně jako jakékoliv jiné obory v posledních několika desetiletích značný rozvoj v oblasti inovací a aplikací moderních technologií. Z biotechnologií se v současné době, kromě genetického inženýrství, stále častěji využívají nové genomické metody. Stejně jako geneticky modifikované organismy lze tyto inovativní techniky využít k velice přesnému a rychlému šlechtění rostlin odolných proti herbicidům, škůdcům, virům, houbám, suchu, rostlin se zvýšenou tolerancí vůči zasolení půdy a dalších. Takto získané rostliny minimalizují potřebu zemědělských vstupů. Je to voda, hnojiva, pesticidy, ale také mechanizace, a proto jejich pěstování může snížit negativní dopady zemědělství na životní prostředí. Nesmíme také samozřejmě zapomínat na udržitelné hospodaření s vodou, které mohou napomoci kromě lepších technologií zavlažování právě nové odrůdy plodin odolné vůči suchu. Česká republika vždy patřila mezi pragmatické země, které dlouhodobě a konzistentně podporují aplikace nových technologií v zemědělství. Již během prvního předsednictví České republiky v Radě EU, a to v roce 2009, se Česká republika zasazovala o podporu genetického inženýrství v zemědělství. Bohužel potenciál těchto technik šlechtění nebyl v Evropské unii plně využit. Dnes jsme v podobné situaci. Věda nám poskytuje další příležitost v podobě nových genomických technik. Jak učinit zemědělství efektivnější, udržitelnější, ziskovější a s menším dopadem na životní prostředí. Proto Ministerstvo zemědělství v rámci předsednictví České republiky v Radě EU považuje za jednu ze svých klíčových priorit posílení udržitelnosti zemědělství a potravinových systémů, dodávek zemědělských produktů a potravin a podporu zavádění inovativních přístupů. Jsme přesvědčeni, že nastal čas přehodnotit některé tradiční přístupy ve prospěch těch moderních, včetně využití nových genomických technik. Úkoly, které před námi stojí, je potřeba řešit rychle a důsledně. Vzhledem k očekávaným dopadům změny klimatu bychom chtěli zvýšit úsilí a investice do výzkumu, vývoje, abychom podpořili využití nových technologií, které zlepší udržitelnost potravinového systému Evropské unie a přispějí zároveň k ochraně životního prostředí. Děkuji za pozornost.
Dámy a pánové, já děkuji panu ministru zemědělství České republiky, panu Zdeňku Nekulovi, za jeho úvodní poselství nebo úvodní slova. A on se ve svém projevu už v podstatě dotkl témat, která budeme řešit i na této mezinárodní vědecké dvoudenní konferenci. Dámy a pánové, jenom připomínám, že je vám k dispozici překlad a tlumočení jak do anglického, tak do českého jazyka. Z této konference bude pořízen i videozáznam, který vám bude také plně k dispozici. Zároveň na webu Ministerstva zemědělství najdete i jednotlivé příspěvky našich hostů. No a dámy a pánové, abych nezapomněla, prosím, vypněte ještě své mobilní telefony. Teď už mi všem dovolte, abych pozvala sice virtuálně, ale sem k nám na konferenci našeho dalšího vzácného hosta, Mrs. Stella Kyriakides, Commissioner for Health and Food Safety, Directorate General of the European Commission, is currently the guest of today's conference. I hope the connection is well.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Oh, welcome to our conference, Commissioner. And now, your opening words, please.
Good morning, Minister Nekula, eminent speakers, guests, ladies and gentlemen. We all know that our food system is under pressure from all sides, from the existential threats which are posed by climate change and biodiversity loss, from the shocks of COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine that have really further highlighted the vulnerabilities of our food system. from energy-related inflation and the great pressure on prices consumers have to pay at the supermarket. So we have no choice but to act. And we need to act now with ambition, with vision, and with courage. And this conference promises to contribute to that effort, and I want to thank the Czech presidency of the Council for inviting me to address a few words today. And when it comes to securing a food system that both we and future generations can rely on, sustainability is the only way forward. To secure a sustainable food system, we need to change the way we produce and the way we consume. The Farm to Fork strategy sets out the vision of the Commission for a transition to a sustainable food system. It's delivering a sustainable food system that is robust, it functions in all circumstances, it ensures that the food chain has a neutral or positive environmental impact, and provides access, importantly, to sufficient and nutritious foods. It also upholds high quality, safety, plant health and animal health and welfare standards. And it keeps food affordable while generating fairer economic returns in the supply chain. So under our plans, everyone stands to gain. Sustainability is fundamental for our long-term security. Now, this doesn't mean doing nothing when crisis hits. On the contrary, the Commission has dealt very swiftly with the issues arising from Russia's aggression against Ukraine. In March 2022, we presented short and medium measures to safeguard global health security and to support EU farmers and consumers in the face of rising food prices and input costs. And only a few weeks ago, we adopted a communication to make sure that fertilizers are both available and affordable, and to reduce EU's dependency on imported fertilizers. And to support our actions, the Commission's Joint Research Centre is working now on an evidence-based study into the key drivers, what causes food security. The fact remains, however, that climate change, biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse and resource scarcity are really the biggest threats facing humanity in the coming decades. And the long-term solutions we together create now will help us deal with those threats. And that is why we need the Farm to Fork strategy more than ever. We need a more resilient food system that is going to be able to deliver lasting food security through crisis, both climate and biodiversity. We need a food system that is less dependent on chemical inputs such as pesticides or fertilizers. And this will ultimately make EU producers more competitive. But for this to happen, we must provide farmers with the right knowledge, the right training and tools, digitalization and new technologies, which are at the very heart of Farm to Fork, and with EU Horizon Europe research program support. And there are already many solutions ahead. For example, now farmers can tailor how they apply fertilizers or irrigation, reducing inputs and emissions in the process. Now, on September 14th, President von der Leyen announced that a legislative proposal on plants produced by certain new genomic techniques would feature among the Commission's new key initiatives for the next year, for 2023. And accordingly, we aim to present a legislative proposal next spring that will put more tools in the toolbox for plant breeders and farmers, which will deliver on sustainability objectives and maintain high safety standards. There's a great deal of evidence available to us showing that plants produced by new genomic techniques have the potential to support sustainability ambitions. And this product development pipeline includes a wide variety of products from cereals to fruit and vegetables. So it is important that we use this knowledge moving forward. Friends, dear ladies and gentlemen, the strength of the EU in addressing challenges related to food security and climate change lies in its diversity. We have to take what makes it organic and ecological and biotech to work alongside it to achieve our ambitious aims. But let me also say this to you. In what I could say is in the clearest possible terms. Our forthcoming proposal, protecting animal health, plant health, and the environment's health, is something that we all need to work on together. It is the only way forward. So the Commission is committed to tabling a legal proposal that is underpinned by EFSA's much-valued scientific work and by a thorough analysis of impacts and all stakeholder contributions. This should provide a good basis for the interinstitutional negotiations with Member States and the European Parliament on the possible adoption of new legislation. So, in ending, I want to say that we look to every one of you, each of you, over the coming months to engage in an open and constructive debate on this, because we need to work together in order to be able to have a safe, sustainable food system for the future. And this is important to, I believe, all of us. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to exchange a few words, and I wish you a very successful conference today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored that the Commissioner Stella Kyriakides was able to participate in this international scientific conference. Unfortunately, her work obligations do not allow her to stay with us longer. Nevertheless, we thanks for your time, Commissioner, and thanks for your wish. Thank you for your opening words. Many thanks for being with us. Dámy a pánové, naším dalším hostem je výkonný ředitel Evropského úřadu pro bezpečnost potravin, pan Bernhard Url. A myslím, že bychom opět měli být v online spojení. We also need to connect online with our next guest.
Yes, good morning. Can
yeah,
you hear
perfect.
me?
Good morning. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to welcome Mr. Bernhard Url, Executive Director of the European Food Safety Authority in this time. So, I believe you can hear us and see us well.
Yes, I can hear and see you. You can hear me as well.
Oh, perfect. So, Director, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And good morning from Parma. And apologies that I cannot be with you in person in Prague. I would have loved to, but it doesn't work. Thank you, Minister Nekula and the Czech Presidency of the Council of the European Union for this invitation. Commissioner Kyriakides, Minister Nekula, honorable attendees of this conference, ladies and gentlemen. We have heard already from the interventions of Minister Nekula and Commissioner Kyriakides how high food security and sustainability and innovation are on the political agenda in Europe. I think the task at hand now is to balance the triangle of food safety, food security, and sustainable food systems. At EFSA, we say food safety is the basis for everything. If it's not safe, it's not food. And we at EFSA support policymakers with independent scientific advice on risks in the food system. And therefore today, it is an opportunity to share a few thoughts and an EFSA perspective on the interplay between innovation and sustainability. We will have a short look at what we have achieved after 20 years of work and what we are doing also to ensure we remain fit for purpose. So where does the EU food safety system stand today, 20 years on? Since 2002, EFSA has been contributed to the safety of food in 3 main areas. Our main task is to deliver independent scientific advice to risk managers to help protect consumers, animals, plants, and the environment from food-related risks. In addition to that, a second core task of EFSA is to communicate and engage with the civil society on existing and emerging risks in the food and feed chain. And thirdly, very important in our founding regulation, the cooperation with the member states' food safety authorities to have something like a shared commitment to safer food. And with all this together, after the breakdown of the trust into the food safety system, with the BSE crisis, with the setting up of the general food law and a joint work over 20 years, I think we can all say together the level of food safety in Europe is high and the trust of European consumers into the system has been regained. Our Eurobarometer survey of 2022 also shows that scientists in public institutions remain among the most trusted sources for information on food risks. So what challenges and opportunities does the wider context of our work present? The environment in which we operate is changing faster than ever before. Science and technology do not stand still, and they drive innovation forwards towards alternative products and processes, which are meant to be safe and more sustainable. However, some of these innovations are perceived to be in tension with safety and precaution. We also see that the societal demands are evolving. Just think, for example, on the citizen initiative to save bees and farmers that collected more than 1.2 million signatures in favor of different agricultural model to phase out synthetic pesticides, to take measures to recover biodiversity, to provide support to farmers to work with nature. And there was also the citizens' initiative on the end of the cage age, showing growing societal concerns over the welfare conditions of farmed animals. And these developing societal demands also have led to policy and regulatory changes. Commissioner Kyriakides has mentioned European Green Deal, which intends to improve the well-being and health of citizens and future generations. One of the pillars of this is the Farm to Fork strategy, as we all know, aiming at a fair, healthy, and environmentally friendly food system. Upcoming is the legislative framework for sustainable food systems, also under the EU Green Deal, a chemical strategy towards a toxic-free environment, biodiversity strategy, and so on and so forth. More specifically for EFSA, in 2019, the General Food Law was amended by the Transparency Regulation, which further boosted openness and gave EFSA the legal and financial means to proactively publish the data and evidence we use for our assessments. It also led to a strengthening of the reliability and objectivity of the studies, the scientific studies that are submitted to EFSA. It also reinforced the governance of EFSA, so we very much welcome the member states on our management board. And last but not least, it enhanced our collaboration with the member states, and it gave us the financial means to entrust member state organizations with scientific preparatory work. For us, the Transparency Regulation was an enormous step forward and lifted EFSA on a new level of operations. So how will EFSA ensure that food safety assessments remain fit for purpose? Ensuring that food safety assessments are fit also in future in this fast-changing world is a key feature of our strategy 2027. So what does that mean? It means to capitalize on the data and the computing revolution. It means investing in new assessment methodologies, upgrading risk communication with social science insights, to collaborate within the EU food safety ecosystem, and last but not least, to apply the One Health principle for transitioning to sustainable food systems. Let's have a short, closer look into these different items. The first one is to make the best use of the data revolution. There are a lot of opportunities within this exponential growth of data and evidence. One, of course, is the use of artificial intelligence that will help us to speed up food safety risk assessments, to improve their quality, for example, by limiting human error, and to enable the discovery of new patterns in data and keep pace with the exponential growth of evidence. But it's not only about AI, it's also about the optimization of the use of already available data, like monitoring and surveillance data, and to integrate them into food safety assessments. To achieve that, we think we need to create what we call the EU food safety data ecosystem, where EFSA, the member states, and the European Commission work together to make the collection of data, the use of data, the reuse of data more efficient and more useful for all actors in the food system. We also have to keep our methodological toolbox up to date. Why is this needed? A few examples. New food and feed sources like plant-based proteins, edible insects, seaweed, cultured meat, products obtained through synthetic biology or new processing technologies are emerging with the aim to feed a growing global population while remaining within planetary boundaries. But there are other challenges, like chemical mixtures. We know that humans, animals, and the environment are exposed to multiple chemicals from a variety of sources. And in the future, it will no longer be enough to assess these chemicals on an individual basis. We have to enable the assessment of what we call the combined exposure to multiple chemicals. And this will need the development of rather complex and costly new methodologies. And there are new toxicological challenges. Let's think of endocrine disruptors, for example, or on the influence of chemicals on the unborn child, developmental neurotoxicity, developmental immunotoxicity, just to name a few. However, there are also opportunities in this methodological innovation. We will more and more use what we call new approach methodologies to minimize the use of animals and animal testing and to transition towards food safety assessment that rely more on computerized and a mechanistic approach to toxicology. And I think we also have to simplify and lean, for example, for low-risk substances and products such as low-risk active substances in plant protection products, or also some genetically modified organisms obtained with new genomic techniques. Another important task that we have all in Europe is the harmonization of risk assessment approaches. The regulatory frameworks are quite scattered, and the one substance, one assessment pillar within the EU chemical strategy aims at harmonizing risk assessment approaches across regulatory frameworks. We also have to invest in preparedness, development of tools that identify emerging risks at the global, regional, and national level, so that we can control, prevent, and monitor them and put them in place in a timely manner. In addition to that, we need to explore new evidence sources from sensors, from satellites, from citizen scientists, from media, to supply risk managers with surveillance data, as we do, for example, for animal health and plant health. Not to forget innovation in risk communication. The relationship between science and society has become increasingly complex. And what we have learned and I think I can say painfully learned, is that educating the public through a one-way communication is not an effective strategy for ensuring the trustworthiness of science. So we need to rethink the way we communicate science and also innovation. Efforts must focus on listening, on engaging, and on more collaboration, like the open science principle. And we think, and we do at EFSA, we have to open scientific assessments to the involvement of new actors. And what we have learned from the COVID-19 pandemic is that behavioral insights and the understanding of their socio-cultural context are needed to develop impactful public health interventions. And for that, we need to use social sciences. They are crucial to increase the effectiveness and the relevance of food safety interventions. And finally, I think we have to team up with food safety actors across the European Union and beyond. The magnitude and the complexity of the task ahead means we cannot rely solely on our own resources. We cannot do this, and I think no organization can do this alone. So we have to create something like a virtual ecosystem where we combine the knowledge needed for safe and sustainable food. And this leads me to the One Health approach. The European Union Green Deal highlights many areas that require an interinstitutional and transdisciplinary way of working. This, for me, is a key for the future, transdisciplinary working. And the One Health approach means to connect and integrate expertise, data, and tools across a wide range of disciplines, sectors, and actors. It also requires new skills in education in system science, with an emphasis on science translation and integration. From my perspective, ladies and gentlemen, science has produced an avalanche of new knowledge insights, but what we miss, from my perspective, still is the science of integration, the science of making sense, the science of putting the pieces of the puzzle together. We at EFSA, we operate, so to speak, at the nexus of 4 One Health domains: human health, animal health, plant health, environmental health. And together with our sister agencies, we can and we want to deliver this integrated and transdisciplinary advice to risk managers. We have done this already. Think, for example, our successful application of the One Health principle in the area of zoonosis, in the area of antimicrobial resistance, in the area of bee health. And now we are enlarging this collaboration in the area of environmental risk assessment. During our One Health, One Environment, One Society conference in 2022 in Brussels, EFSA and its partner agencies have committed to establish a cross-agency One Health task force. Our aim is to move to transdisciplinary research and scientific advice and to give it a One Health perspective. I think by applying the rather simple One Health principles of coordinate, collaborate, communicate, we, EFSA, our sister agencies, and our member state partners will support the transition towards sustainable food systems with comprehensive scientific advice. I think the political decisions along this transition journey will differ very much from country to country. However, the need to base these decisions on the best available science will be the same for all countries. Let me come to my concluding remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, the scope of food safety has been changing over time. Today, food safety must be understood from a broader perspective, taking into account food security, healthy nutrition, and sustainability. We at EFSA are ready to move food safety assessments to the next level. We are investing in innovations, in data, in methods, in expertise for absorbing the growing complexity. However, I believe that no single actor can master the level of complexity in science and society alone. Therefore, it is crucial that we move forward with the implementation of the EU's ecosystem of food safety. We warmly invite you to join us on this journey, as we believe there's no good alternative. But there's also political support needed to ensure risk assessments are performed in the most impactful way in the EU. I have to say that also in food safety assessments, we are still an imperfect union. Many assessments are done multiple times in the member states and on the EU level, which is, frankly speaking, a waste of resources. Additionally, these assessments are sectorial. They lack a holistic view on health, environment, and socioeconomic impacts of agri-food interventions. My plea is to support the One Health approach with political initiatives for more collaboration. We should further integrate our work and share expertise, data, and tools to collaboratively deliver more value to our citizens. For powering the transformation of our agri-food system, innovation plays a crucial role. I think the key for success in this transformation is what I would say the mutual enhancement of innovation and One Health collaboration. But both of them need to be based on an open and trustworthy social dialogue. Thank you to the Czech presidency for organizing this conference, as it shows that innovation and innovative solutions are needed for a more sustainable food system, and that this is high on the political agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your speech. You've mentioned at the beginning 3 words, one triangle: food safety, security, and sustainability. And I think that's the key for the future. And at the end, you mentioned dialogue. Director Bernhard Url has to leave us in a moment due to busy work as well. But let me ask one short question, Director. What do you see as the biggest challenge for risk assessors in the transition to sustainable production, and how is SFA prepared to meet this challenge?
Yeah, thank you very much. The transition that you mentioned, and that it's now so important on the agenda, has risks and benefits. And risks and benefits for health, for environment, for the economy. And this is why I think policymakers need the best possible advice to navigate through this risk and benefit journey in terms of health, environment, and economy. And for this, I see big challenges for us as risk assessors. The first challenge is, how will we assess all the innovative products and processes that will be needed for this transition? So new plant breeding technologies, new pesticides, new feed additives, new recycling processes, new intelligent packaging material. So we have to be ready. We have to innovate also our methodology toolbox to be ready for that. And the second challenge I see is, how can we integrate our advice into a holistic policy support? It's not only about safety, it's also about social, environmental sustainability. So this integration of advice, I think, is a big challenge. What are we doing to face it? We invest in methodology, we invest in data, we invest in expertise. But at the same time, and this is my big plea to you, to all of you, we invest in collaboration, and we need to bring collaboration to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Director Bernhard Url was the guest of this conference. Thanks for your speech. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, and good luck to the conference.
Thank you.
Success.
So, ladies and gentlemen, our next guest is Martin Hlaváček, poslanec Evropského parlamentu, nestraník za hnutí ANO. A já doufám, pane Hlaváčku, že máte cestu sem k nám dopředu. Tak poprosím ještě o vaše úvodní slova. Prosím.
Good morning. Director General, he has a triangle for success. I have a square, and I hope that after my speech today, we would all conclude that you cannot make circle out of a square. And this is why I'm going to talk today about vision and reality, because I have a strong feeling that we tend to spend too much time on discussing the vision, while we are reconfirming the facts, reconvincing the direction, reconvincing ourselves about the pathway and endeavor that we need to take, while we are spending quite few time on having a critical thinking on, are we on the right track? Have we chosen the right ways and means and methods? And have we really applied this multidisciplinary and multi-dimensional and multi-factor way of assessing impacts and also chances to succeed? I don't think we need more discussions on the square of 4 corners, and that is emissions. Do we need to tackle emissions? Yes, we do. Biodiversity. Haven't we not addressed biodiversity over the past decades? No, we haven't. Obesity. Have we addressed the main cause of non-communicable diseases? We haven't. And security. This is the new corner we have not perceived for decades, and that is coming back to the equation again. And that all breaks down for me just into some basic questions. Biodiversity, emissions, obesity, and security, it is a function of how do we farm on the lands, how do we eat, or what do we eat, and how autonomous, that means security, are we in Europe compared to the rest of the world. If we agree on that, we now need to have follow-up questions on, do we need to produce? Because we often substitute environment and all other of those objectives for no producing. And I think this is not the main word in the sentence. The main word is, how do we produce? Are we producing sustainably? Are we producing sustainably enough to produce enough to have, meaning security, and produce healthy products for our populations to live and eat healthy? And the question has an answer. We have improved significantly. And if you look just on emissions, Europe has reduced emissions over the past 15 years by 23%. While other of our competitors or partners, as you will, they have increased. In US by single digits. In India, China, Brazil, you would go even up to 40+%. So we have made a huge progress. Does it then make any sense to reduce our production while, in fact, transferring this production somewhere else? It doesn't make that much sense. But this is not the key question. This is not the main question. The main question is, are we producing sustainably enough? And again, here the honest answer is not yet. So then the problem just breaks down into how. How do we make it to fulfill this square of success? And first of all, I think we have to take serious, scientific, evidence-based policy coherent decisions, and we have to take the action now. So it has a quality element, but it also has its time element. And now the question is, are we doing that? And here, my concerns and doubts start to emerge. So let's break it down into those few elements. How do we farm? The main issue here from that square is emissions and biodiversity. We don't need to convince ourselves that we need to tackle those two issues. But what are the proposals? The proposals coming are, you need to reduce fertilizers, you need to reduce pesticides. Fair enough. And what next? Are you enabling us? Are you equipping us? Because it then seems like a very easy task. But here we are a little bit misguided. Complex issues like emissions or biodiversity, they have no simple solutions. So, is our proposal on pesticides, the reduction elements, is it something that would make the solution? Likely not. Because if we would then adhere to the evidence-based approach, one could tell you, if you want to deal with pesticides in Europe, you have to fulfill at least 3 objectives. First, you have to enable farmers with alternative crops, or new crops, as you wish. Some people are scared of this word alternative, so new crops. We need to boost precision application, because by that we reduce the volume. And we need to also give people alternatives to those products. But instead, we are just imposing limits. So where are the new genomic techniques? Why are we waiting for them so long while we have already the reduction targets on the table for discussion? Where is the fast track endorsement for marketing of, or placing on the market of alternatives like microbial pesticides? Where are they? We are again waiting. And where is the boost for precision farming? Look over the strategic plans that would be in place as of January 1st. Is it serious? Is it serious? In this country we made some effort, but would that be enough? Farmers are telling me no, and it's still the better option here, or it's still the better example here than if you go across the... Okay. So we are missing big policy coherence. We are trying to solve issues, complex issues, with simple proposals. Let's move next. How do we eat? Because this is about non-communicable diseases, but it breaks down into 2 factors again. Affordability. Do people have to afford healthy food? And second, proper choice. Do people know how they should choose the proper food to eat? And again, we talk about affordability. We heard it from the Commissioner, we heard it from the EFSA. I'm sure many other people will talk about it here. But can you show me any proposal we have made over the past years to help farmers and food processors to make food more affordable for us? I haven't. Is increasing those targets, paying more for fertilizers, paying more for packaging, paying more for all other stuff, is that something that helps us to make things more, or food more affordable? If you know one, let me know. And the choice. Do we believe that by imposing on people misleading claims on food would help us to deal with the non-communicable diseases and with the poor diet? Because it's true, in Europe we have some health issues. We have some big issues in non-communicable diseases, and they are a factor of our nutrition, our diet. But again, we are considering now to have a labeling on ultra-processed food, often artificial food, to be labeled A, green, by Nutri-Score. And sometimes even worse, we are going to endorse that some artificial food that has nothing to do with its original product would be denominated the same way as the traditional food. Is it something that people would easily understand and not confuse eventually? I have doubts. Let's have a look on the third element, and this is autonomy or security, if you wish. We have only two issues in Europe. We are quite okay, as Minister and others have mentioned, we are quite okay in agri-food sector, but we have two main issues. And our main issue, number one, is our soil nutrient deficiency, because we are heavily independent on soil nutrients. And the second one is our deficiency in animal nutrition. We are heavily independent, especially in animal production, on nutrients imported from elsewhere. Again, what are the proposals so far to tackle this issue? We have decided that as of 2030, half of our fertilizers production would have to go green from nitrogen. And this is, one would say, a good pathway. But if you talk to the global players of today's world, like Yaras and others, they would tell you, oh, wait a second, this would take us more than 8 years to invest in all that equipment. And second, if you wanted to have this energy to field just this one sector, you can forget about greening other sectors, because it equals to multiple blocks of nuclear facilities, nuclear power plants. So again, you can see that we are missing one key element, and this is a coherence of those policies. Again, we have failed on this multidisciplinary, multi-factor approach to bring solutions. And one would then say, and I would conclude with that, and I hope that this conference could help to overcome that to some extent. What are the reasons of this? Why are we imposing simple solutions on complex topics, and then we are a little bit concerned if they would work or not? And I see there are two factors. And one is that decisions, the key decisions, are made politically. And that's part of self-criticism. But it doesn't mean that they shouldn't. They should be done. But we have to realize that over the past years, policy decision and policy making has been increasingly factor of a professional activism. And then we can preach ourselves, including with EFSA, science-based, evidence-based, multi-factor, multidisciplinary complex, but the results are different. And from my perspective, the key element that contributed to that was the politicization of European Commission. And it is a pity. And I think DG Sante, as the key player in the domain that we care about, this is also part of the disaster. We should fight against it, and we should remember, politicians, that there are domains and elements of our lives where if you do not listen to science and evidence, you might not find, and I'm gentle, you might not find the right answers going forward. And the second element, I think, is, and here I have a tendency not to agree with the previous speakers, we are much worse than we think we are in the future visionary science-related discipline. Today, the core of the visionary and future science lies in the business and in the private hands or outside of Europe. And we are self-guilty for that, because we have not been able to fast enough and dynamically enough develop our legislation and internal structures and the ways of collaboration between public health and other food and other food security and other agencies in this domain to cope pace with the development. And we do not have skills in EFSA on addressing those issues. We do not have enough skills and we don't have enough fast track approach in EFSA on improving NGTs, on improving microbial alternatives to pesticides, on improving insect for animal nutrition, on all those where the rest of the world is much advanced, like me. And worst element is, few years back we still had multiple excellence scientific centers on many domains, including plant breeding and others in Europe, and they are leaving us. And this is a signal that we should not be blind and not to see, and this is something we should cope with. And this could be the Commission's biggest investment in the future. And people should take decisions, their results they won't see, because this would come in years. But the investment needs to be done today, and the action needs to be done today. And this is a message I would like to keep in this conference, and I wish you a successful day of discussion. Thank you.
Dámy a pánové, tady zazněla celá řada zajímavých a podnětných otázek do diskuse. Já jsem si pilně dělala poznámky. Vy jste mluvil o tom čtverci, tak doufám, že se nám to tady nezvrhne v nějakou matematickou konferenci nakonec. Vyrábíme udržitelně a vyrábíme udržitelně dostatečně. I na to se pan poslanec Hlaváček ptal. Čas a kvalita, koherence, soudržnost, propojenost jednotlivých politik. To všechno jsou jistě klíčové věci. Dovolte mi, abych se vás ale zeptala na jednu jinou věc. Co si myslíte o názorech zemědělské veřejnosti, že Evropský parlament svým environmentalismem jde proti zájmům celého evropského zemědělství. Jaký je váš pohled?
Děkuji. Já jsem o tom shodou okolností mluvil v pátek v Římě. To je přesně to, o čem jsem mluvil na začátku. Proč nám zemědělci nevěří? Není krize jejich intelektu, že by nechápali, že musíme řešit emise, že máme řešit biodiverzitu, že máme řešit zdraví lidí a že máme řešit budoucnost, bezpečnou budoucnost Evropy, včetně potravinové bezpečnosti. Důvod, proč nám lidé nevěří, je v tom zjednodušení, o kterém jsem mluvil. A to z toho důvodu, že zemědělci dobře vědí, co se dá a co se nedá realizovat a co má a co nemá logiku. Takže pokud přijdeme za zemědělci a budeme jim říkat, že mají snižovat uhlíkovou stopu, že mají pomáhat zlepšovat biodiverzitu a že tím nejlepším receptem je, aby přestali hospodařit, protože stále žijeme ve společnosti, kde dost významný podíl lidí je přesvědčen o tom, že opustit půdu a nechat ji ladem je ten největší přínos pro životní prostředí a biodiverzitu. Já všem vždycky říkám, pokud máte zahrádku, a skoro každý u naší zemi má nějakou zahrádku, tak si to zkuste. Jeden rok nebo dva nechte ten záhonek tak, jak je. A uvidíte, co vám tam příští rok a napřes rok a za 3 roky vyroste. To nebude žádná romantická představa o motýlech, biodiverzitě, bzučících včelách a beruškách. To bude dosti zhuntovaná část půdy, kterou by řada lidí, a ti, co pamatují 90. léta a úpadek našeho zemědělství, považovali za zvěrstvo. To byly ty doby, kdy jsme jezdili po dálnici nebo po silnici a byly tam ty neobdělané lány, mnohdy zarostlé náletem. To byly ty doby, kdy invazivní rostliny a další problémy, o kterých se dneska děti učí, tak je jsme mohli vidět na vlastní oči. Takže to je součást toho našeho problému. Pokud bychom zemědělcům, a já si vemu tenhle příklad, když jste zmínila zemědělce, ale platí to taky v potravinách. Pokud bychom zemědělcům logicky řekli, tady máte dostatek finančních prostředků na precizní aplikaci syntetických látek, ať už hnojiv, nebo prostředků na ochranu rostlin, viděli byste dobře, že bychom snížili objem, pokud to budeme dělat v dostatečném rozsahu. Pokud bychom zemědělcům řekli, tady máte a můžete používat rostliny, které nepotřebují ať už tolik výživy v podobě syntetických látek nebo tolik ochranných prostředků. Opět bychom o něco snížili a pokud bychom zemědělcům řekli a ještě navíc, když budete používat alternativy v podobě třeba mikrobiálních pesticidů vůči těm syntetickým, tak vás rovněž za to nějakým způsobem oceníme, protože jsou to nákladnější postupy. Precizní aplikace, nové plodiny a zároveň nové typy pesticidů budou vždycky nákladnější než ty staré. Jejichž vývoj a produkce už se zaplatila. Tak pak by to bylo uvěřitelné a určitě by zemědělci neměli pocit, že Bruselem cloumá zelené šílenství. Takže prosím vás, soustřeďme se na kredibilní a věrohodné návrhy. Děkuji.
Já děkuji panu poslanci Martinu Hlaváčkovi za jeho úvodní slova. Tak myslím, že ta atmosféra nám tady tak jako pěkně se rozvlnila. Tak mi dovolte, abych sem k řečnickému pultíku pozvala dalšího vzácného hosta, a to vedoucího kabinetu Generálního ředitelství pro zemědělství a rozvoj venkova, které je generálním ředitelstvím Evropské komise, pana Macieje Benedikta Golubiewského.
Good morning, everyone. Let me time myself so that we don't overrun with time. But first of all, Minister Nekula, dear colleagues, members of Parliament, European Parliament, everybody gathered here, thank you very much to the Czech presidency for this invitation to my commissioner. I'll be speaking in his name. I have some remarks that are prepared, and I will make them, but there was also a lot of points made by my predecessors that I think I'd like to relate to, because I think they were well taken. But first and foremost, we have to remember that only 2.5 years ago, food security was taken for granted. Farmers were told to focus on reaching our climate and environmental objectives. And while competitiveness and income preservation for farmers was obviously part of the common agricultural policy's goals, the emphasis was somewhere else. Then COVID came, we had to queue for food in our stores. Then we had the invasion of Russia and Ukraine, where suddenly we had food inflation, gas prices going up, fertilizer prices going through the roof, input prices for farmers going through the roof. We realized that food security and food affordability is an absolutely key strategic policy and objective for the European Union. And it was my commissioner's initiative, in my commissioner's actions and his determination to ensure that food security will remain as important as any other strategic security, such as military, energy, or otherwise. With these developments, there was a question automatically posed. What do we do with our sustainable objectives, with our climate action objectives? Do we abandon it? Do we go ahead? Do we calibrate it? And I think my predecessor spoke about simplicity and the need for a bit more complexity, and I'd like to reassure him that I think the approach that has been my commissioner and the Commission has been taking in the past year or so has shown that there is a bit more complexity to the thinking than just setting objectives and simple paths to reach them. I think the Common Agricultural Policy, first and foremost, is the policy where this complexity is revealed. While we do have strategies of various sorts, farm to fork, biodiversity, and we have some very specific objectives there, I think it is the complexity in our Common Agricultural Policy of how to get there, and I'll talk about it, that should ensure that we can face this simultaneous challenge of tackling sustainability and climate action together with ensuring that there is successful agriculture, that farmers continue to exist, that they don't disappear, and that they can reap benefits from the markets. So right after these crises, right after the beginning of the war, the Commission released a communication on food security on the 23rd of March. I think it sets the good and the right balance and tone. On one hand, it worked hard to ensure food security in the short term, both in the EU and globally, but not relinquishing our long-term Green Deal objectives. Later on the 9th of November, because of the initiative of my commissioner, there was another communication on the affordability and availability of fertilizer. And here I would like to also answer certain questions regarding what have we done about this. Well, obviously price of gas is a driving issue when it comes to fertilizers produced out of nitrogen. But if you look at the communication very closely, and when you talk to the fertilizer industry, they're extremely happy that that Commissioner managed to ensure that in that communication, there's a big emphasis on so-called low-carbon approaches to producing fertilizer. So not just a long-term emphasis on hydrogen-based production, but also on low-carbon, which is carbon capture and storage. This was extremely well appreciated by the fertilizer industry because it allows a proper transition path for fertilizers to adapt to the new circumstances. So the Commission does look pragmatically and does provide solutions that should be workable, and that's just one example. When it comes to the CAP itself, as I mentioned before, it remains a key instrument to make this approach work, and the Commission will stand firm with the farmers to ensure that their incomes are ensured and that at the same time they are on the path to a more climate-friendly agriculture. We still believe that sustainability in agriculture is the necessary condition for farming to exist, but it's not a sufficient condition. There is no real farming in the long term without addressing sustainability challenges, but we need to also have farmers who prosper. Otherwise, we're just left with sustainability, but without farmers. So we are very cognizant of that. Now, on the CAP a little bit, on the CAP strategic plans, this is really where the rubber hits the road. My commissioner took pains to ensure, and one by one, he looked personally at each and single CAP strategic plan of each member state to ensure that those challenges that each member state has, and there are very different challenges, are addressed properly in those CAP strategic plans. These plans are the key to ensure that there is a farming model developed in each country which is less energy intensive and more efficient in the use of inputs. And the Commission will work with member states to ensure that the interventions planned in all their CAP strategic plans, for example, on nutrient management, on soil health improvement that was mentioned, on precision farming, organic farming, agroecology, use of leguminous crops, in crop rotation schemes, etc., are widely adopted by farmers. So this new CAP and the CAP strategic plan specifically will be a key instrument for ensuring sustainable future, at the same time future with income and competitiveness for farmers. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the research and innovation because part of the conference is about this. This is a hugely important topic. There is no sustainability challenge cannot be answered if we do not properly invest in innovative ways. And yes, the private sector is absolutely key here. It has to find innovative ways to advance very quickly on resilience of farms, competitiveness, as well as on food security and affordability during this time of very high-priced inputs. And contrary to the current worldwide trend, when in particular public investments in agriculture, research and development are going down, The EU has actually reinforced its efforts. Agricultural, bioeconomy and food-related R&I funding has almost doubled for this current period. So the EU invests considerably in agriculture research and innovation, as well as in capacity building to take up and effectively deploy innovative solutions, because we do agree, Commissioner does agree, that enabling environment is absolutely crucial. Just to give you an example, in our communication on fertilizers, it was revealed that under the Horizon Europe, under the first 2 years of its operation, more than 35 projects with a budget of around 180 million have been put in operation that relates to fertilizers and agriculture, for example. It also, these projects also contain projects related to optimization of a nutrient budget, alternative fertilizing products, nature-based and agroecological solutions, and for nutrient management. These also are granted under our Soil Deal for Europe, which is our Horizon Europe mission. There was quite a bit said about the importance of soil condition. On the innovation and digitalization, because it's also a very important part of our approach for sustainability, we have to admit that we actually also do a lot. The use of sensors, for example, assessing agro-environmental conditions, the so-called Internet of Things technologies, real-time automation, have shown that inputs such as fertilizers, fuel, and pesticides can be significantly reduced. Just give you one example, which is very specific, but to illustrate, in the project Internet of Things, involving partners from across Europe, technical solutions for wine producers were developed, involving multiple sensors to gather information on agro-environmental conditions, on production patterns. All of this was tailored and led, among others, to reduced costs for pesticides and fertilizers by 20%, and also led to a reduced use of energy and water, and an overall productivity gains of 400 euros per hectare, plus, of course, increased annual savings due to accident prevention. So we do have very good targeted practical approaches under our R&I projects in the sphere of digitization. Now, what is important here, obviously, is to bridge the divide in member states and across different farms between when it comes to technology. There are certain farms that are less advanced, maybe they're not in possession of resources to buy certain investments, to make certain investments in technology. There are different countries with different levels of advancement in their farming sectors. This needs to be bridged, and this is part of our common agricultural policy. Now, apart from the technology, also called investments in tech, we also need enabling conditions, but also need improved production structures and the way we do farming, so to speak. So it's not just heaping technology onto existing production structures that will solve problems. It's not just about efficiency or cutting inputs using very complicated technologies. We need to promote a bit more sustainable way of doing business in agriculture through agroecology, things like intercropping, things like integrated pest management, and we need to support innovators from the ground through universities, startups, and to develop these tailored approaches for the sector. Now, enabling conditions, I'm mentioning it for the third or fourth time. None of this can happen if we don't have a tailored investment support, if we don't have tailored advisory services to farmers, if we don't have a truly functioning agricultural knowledge and innovation systems, if we don't have tailored research and innovation actions, when we don't have access to public data, and there is no trust in data sharing. All of these are absolutely necessary as enabling conditions to make those technological approaches lead us to more sustainability and productivity. Obviously, we have all the instruments I mentioned. I won't bore you with this, and we discussed. New breeding techniques. I didn't plan to talk a lot about this because Commissioner Kyriakides was talking about it, but it is obviously very important that after many years of discussions and in response to a proposal by the Conference on the Future of Europe, the European Commission is actually preparing a legislative proposal on NGTs to contribute to a more resilient and sustainable food systems. Yet there are always questions that there are this topic is surrounded by a lot of questions. We have to be very attuned to them. There are a lot of promises being made, but there's also lots of doubts. So I think we need to look at the potential of these techniques, obviously, but we should be clear that we shouldn't be compromising about health and environmental safety. We have the precautionary principle. If there is scientific uncertainty, it should prevail. This is the European Union's approach. Of course, this also should not close the door to innovation. The Green Deal is our growth strategy. NGTs provide a lot of potential, and EU should benefit from it. But there are also fears. There are fears that, and risks that NGTs will mostly benefit large companies, for example, which are able to patent gene sequences that may take control of genetic resources. This is an important issue, needs to be part of the debate. Should NGT products be covered by patents? Very important question. What would be the implications of patenting of gene sequences that could occur in nature? In particular, on small breeders' ability to access to genetic resources and on farmers' rights to save their seeds from their crops. These are among the questions that need to be answered in our discussions on NGTs, my commissioner is looking forward to this debate. Obviously, everybody keeps their eyes and ears open on this, and I'm sure there'll be a very detailed science-based analysis before any legislative proposal sees the light of day. I'd like to thank you again on behalf of the Commissioner, and I wish everybody a fruitful conference. Thank you.
Stay with us for 1 minute.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank to Mr. Golubiewski for his speech. You mentioned CAP strategic plans. That's the key. So tell us, please, do you consider that the funds allocated to the common agriculture policy strategic plans are really sufficient to meet the demands placed on farmers under farm to fork? Just a short question.
Sure. Yes. Well, our cap is what? 387 billion for this period, 21-27. It's a sizable amount of money. It will, as I said, support income, innovation, competitiveness, and sustainability. I think that if the strategic plans are properly tailored to the needs of the countries and properly tailored to the challenges inside the countries, if they're used efficiently, I think they can significantly contribute to those sustainability challenges and finance them. We have to remember that 40% of our cap is actually earmarked for climate action. So that's already a guarantee that 40% of all this amount should, in principle, go to those challenges that money is needed for. And I think, so if the CAP strategic plans are really used properly and optimized, I think we're in a good position to arrive at a sufficient level of contribution to the Green Deal from the CAP strategic plans. But also, we have to remember that markets are important. So the farmers need to reap benefits from the markets. They need to produce quality products. The CAP helps, the strategic plans help, but I think we should also enable them to reap benefits. Carbon farming, for example, one of the things that will appear at the college agenda tomorrow, is one of those things. Certification will be available to farmers who would like to store carbon and then sell. This is another income stream for farmers. We can use that to increase their pool of money and resources. The same, I may say, with biogas production and other approaches. So it's not just the CAP strategic plans. I think they can make a very significant contribution to meeting our sustainability goals, but also, all other income streams that we try to enable in the private markets. Thank you.
Many thanks to Mr. Golubiewski for his opening speech, for his contribution. Dámy a pánové, v tuto chvíli mi dovolte, abych pozvala sem k řečnickému pultíku našeho posledního hosta, myslím tím posledního hosta tohoto dopoledního bloku, kterým je, nebo hostku, pokud chcete i, kterou je europoslankyně paní Michaela Šojdrová. Prosím.
So, good morning. Hello, welcome in Prague. I'm very happy to see here many colleagues, many guests from the EU. I'm happy that you are coming to the Prague. Mr. Minister, so dear distinguished guests, I really agree with colleague Hlaváček that we should move from the visions into the reality. I agree, but this conference is a great opportunity to rethink the challenges and to see when our measures, our goals really meet the reality, really meet the changes what we face. My speech and 5 slides will focus on 3 aspects of agriculture policy: the breeding techniques, animal welfare, and front of package labeling. So we celebrate this month, we celebrated the 60th anniversary of the Common Agriculture Policy. We voted the regulation, we voted about strategic plans, we voted about budget. Maybe it's also the answer on the question what Martin you raised in your speech. If we do enough, yes, all this common agriculture policy should be about support of farmers and improvement of agriculture productivity. So this ensures a stable supply of healthy and affordable food for European citizens, as definitely is the goal of the common agriculture policy. And previous speaker has spoken about the policy what we are now, what is now ongoing. So the first slide is about farm to fork. The main targets of common agriculture policy goes hand in hand with the objectives of the farm to fork strategy, which aims to speed up our transition for a sustainable agri-food production system. The farm to fork strategy sees an urgent need for action 5 areas. Please, I would like to move to first slide. In this tough, difficult time, we should rethink if those actions really answer the main problems. Reduce dependency on pesticides and antimicrobials. We have on the table new regulation about pesticides. So I should say that in the European Parliament, we see big, in the Agri Committee, we raised many questions because it's not possible just ban, just reduce without new measures. We ask Commission to really accelerate the work on a new biopesticides, on new measures, new tools for our agriculture. It's not possible just to say you should reduce by 50%. The other measures, the other areas reduce excess fertilizers, increase organic farming, is depend up to consumers, organic farming, improve animal welfare, reverse biodiversity loss. So I think in the time what we have now, we should reflect new conditions. There is a war. Really, Russia's aggression in Ukraine has created a crisis that is affecting energy and food prices and has a significant impact on agriculture production. We should see what we live. So in this situation, we should say what is now a priority. It's also my call on the Commission. In some areas, we should accelerate the work. In some area we can maybe postpone. It is possible because the time is unprecedented. So Europe has experienced and also impact of COVID-19, what we lived, and the impact of climate changes. Europe has experienced one of the hottest summer on record. According to a preliminary study by the European Commission's Joint Research Centre, this year drought in Europe could be the worst in 500 years. So climate impact is here. It's not the idea of European Parliament, it's a reality. So we should also, colleagues, to explain it to our citizens, that farm to fork is not just some ideology, there is a reality that we should move also in this area. The crisis showed us the strong and weak sides of our agri-food production system. It has become evident that we have to learn from the crisis we are going through. As a reaction, our national and European strategic goal should be to build self-sufficiency in basic commodities and resilient to crisis. I think it's very necessary. We are speaking about food security, what it means. For me, for example, for the Czech Republic, it's also self-sufficiency in basic commodities. We cannot resign. In today's situation, it would be a great mistake to ignore the clear voice of scientists and farmers who call for the use of new knowledge and innovations in primary production. In particular, we should fundamentally open the subject of new genomic techniques. I think all previous speakers mentioned this issue. I would like to move to next slide, please. Regulatory framework. For me, as citizen, both citizen and politician, I do not understand why we can import genome-edited products into the EU, use them as a feed for cattle, but we have banned ourselves from growing the same crops within the EU. It's understandable for me and for the citizens. Scientific results have shown that genome editing is an acceptable, safe and effective plant breeding method. This is why I have started fighting for a new legislation which would allow new plant breeding methods. After all, even the European Commission has recognized that the new innovative techniques may play a role in increasing sustainability. Also, the farm to fork, I would like to remain, especially mentions that the request of member states and the Commission is carrying out a study will look at the potential. So also in this strategy, this target is mentioned. On the last 6 months, I have attended several conferences and roundtables where I have spoken to people. We discussed the role of new genomic techniques in plant breeding in the transition to more sustainable agri-food system. A representative of the European Commission assured us that the Commission is working to present a legislative proposal for new genomic technique by the second quarter of 2023. So the scope of the proposal will depend on the outcome of ongoing impact assessment. I expect that this impact assessment will confirm the undoubtedly positive scientific conclusions on NGTs. So the public consultation shows as well that GMO legislation and risk assessment needs to be urgently adapted to scientific and technology progress. I was recently contacted by stakeholders who also see an urgent need for action. So they call upon the Commission to make the initiative as a political priority and to come forward with a legislative proposal by the first quarter of 2023. Every month is our loss, I should say, in the situation that we have. So I believe that we should enable stakeholders, farmers, consumers to choose. They should be free to decide whether they want to use NGTs or not. But we cannot and should not disregard tools that we have already available. Please, and the third slide, education, communication and transparency. It was the call of the stakeholders. To change EU legislation, I am convinced that we need to have an objective and science-based debate on the EU level. A poll we did with participants at a special event last week, that we need to foster consumer confidence in agri-food system, especially by the, please another slide. Yeah, it was not surprising that the condition for the good acceptation of new legislation, it's education, communication and transparency. I think that this issue will be discussed in the next time. I am very happy that they are here experts. I see here Mr. Professor Jaroslav Doležel from the Czech Academy of Science. So you will have opportunity to exchange your view. But the message is clear. We cannot postpone this legislation and this opportunity for European agriculture. And the fourth slide, please, is about animal welfare. If I'm speaking about transparency, I think the transparency is a good key word for the other piece of legislation we are waiting for in the area of animal welfare, phasing out of cages for farm animals. I would like to recall the importance of animal welfare because it's very important for citizens. It's also directly connected to the fulfillment of the farm to fork goals, which is one of them. It was 1.4 million European citizens who requested the end of cages on farm. Together, clearly to say, improve welfare. It was, together with my colleagues in the European Parliament, we supported this citizens' initiative. I want to recall that the Commission committed to presenting a legislative proposal by 2023 and to proposing a new suitable legislation on animal welfare. I expect the Commission is working on this. It's especially important in the Czech Republic because we banned cages for lion hens by 2027. It's not only for the Czech Republic, there's many other European countries when change this farming, they also ban cages, lion hens, and it's the question of the fair conditions on internal market. So absolutely important. And please, I'm waiting for the next slide. I ask my assistant, Annie, please. Voila. Animal welfare, cages. And now, please, the last but not least point. It's five slides about front of pack labeling. It's very important because we are speaking here about agri-food strategy, agri-food sector. And transparency is not only important for NGTs and animal welfare, but also for the last legislative piece I want to mention. Please, the last front of package labeling. It's very important to see. Because what you see here, it's really, I should say, incredible. This impacts the health and consumption habits of all our European citizens. It is reality. This Nutri-Score is reality. You can see it everywhere, also in the Czech shops you can choose. It's important that we avoid a labeling system which would mislead consumers and manipulate. For me, it's clear manipulation. I apologize. Nothing other. We should not favor over-processed food to the detriment of high-quality food. The Commission committed to present a legislative proposal at the beginning of 2023, so another new legislative initiative. So I appeal the Commission to take a common-sense, objective approach to front-of-pack labeling, and especially this should remain voluntary. Approach. It's not possible to impose this Nutri-Score to all, like we can see here. I think it's big risk. After all, promoting healthy and processed food all supports our European farmers. You can see incomparable products which are compared by 1/5 of Nutri-Score. I think it's not necessary to comment. You can answer yourself. Instead of a conclusion, I would like to make a call. I call for learning from the experiences of countries that already have legislation allowing new genomic techniques. There are many, what we saw. And I call for speeding up work on legislation that is in the pipeline and is important for European agriculture and consumers. Front-of-pack labeling should stay voluntary, and animal welfare, which is our pledge. We committed to do it. So, in the end, I would like to say that the decisive factor will be agriculture and consumers. And I'm happy that you will continue in this conference. I wish you a very fruitful, efficient conference and enjoy Prague. Thank you very much.
Děkuji paní poslankyni za její příspěvek. Také si dovolím vás ještě přizvat k odpovědi k jedné mé otázce. Vy jste se dotkla celé řady témat, ať už to bylo toho, že Farm to Fork není jenom ideologie, to se musí stát realitou. Ptala jste se na to, co je myšleno skutečně potravinovou bezpečností. Všichni kolegové si fotili váš závěrečný slide, který je velmi zaujal s Nutri-Score. Moje otázka je ale tato. Jak Evropský parlament podporuje to, aby měly členské státy přístup k novým genomickým technikám? Vy jste mluvila také o tom, že nesmíme oslyšet farmáře, kteří volají po nových technologiích a digitalizaci a tak podobně. Čili co Evropský parlament dělá konkrétně k tomu, aby členské státy měly k novým genomickým technikám lepší přístup? Prosím.
Děkuji, já odpovím. Jenom upřesním, ta strategie Farm to Fork, já jsem chtěla vysvětlit, že to není vymyšlená ideologie v tom smyslu, že reaguje na realitu, protože dopad klimatických změn je tady. A to znamená, že zemědělské techniky, které jsou šetrnější k životnímu prostředí, jsou nutné, že ti zemědělci si je uvědomují. A samozřejmě ta opatření musí pomáhat zemědělcům se s těmi dopady vyrovnat. A to bychom měli reflektovat. Takže snad jsem to takto vysvětlila. A na vaši otázku, co děláme jako Evropský parlament proto, tak my jsme připraveni, zejména v zemědělském výboru, když o tom diskutujeme, tak podpořit tuto novou legislativu, která otevře možnosti pro využívání genomických technik, šlechtění nových rostlin a dokonce ve zprávě právě ke strategii Farm to Fork tento požadavek už je zakotven. Ta výzva pro komisi, aby připravila, otevřela legislativu, ta je tam, myslím, že to byl rok 2020, 2020 byla Farm to Fork a 2021 byla zpráva Evropského parlamentu. Čili Evropská komise i občané by měli vědět, že Evropský parlament tento výbor zemědělský reflektuje požadavek zemědělců a samozřejmě my potřebujeme získat podporu dalších výborů. Takže co děláme? Připravujeme také své kolegy z výboru pro životní prostředí, kteří bývají třeba přísnější a snažíme se rozšířit to povědomí, protože vlastně to, že od roku 2001, kdy se měnila, kdy vlastně přišly GMO, tak to, že zůstali mimo Evropu, tak to byla i chyba mimo jiné komunikace o těchto nových technologiích. Čili my se chceme vyvarovat toho, aby se neopakovala chyba, aby tady nezavládlo dojem mezi občany, že to je něco, co jim může škodit. Čili snažíme se zvýšit povědomí a komunikovat přesně na bázi vědeckých poznatků o této připravované změně.
Dámy a pánové, já děkuji paní europoslankyni Michaele Šojdrové za její stručnou odpověď. Já myslím, že v tuto chvíli, pokud se podíváte na hodinky a na program, který je vám všem k dispozici, tak myslím, že máme opravdu skvělý čas. Před námi je přibližně 30-minutová pauza na kávu. Já musím říct, že řada z našich hostů samozřejmě zůstává ještě i na další blok této mezinárodní vědecké konference. Nebojte se je třeba o pauze na kávu zastavit a podiskutovat s nimi. Naše další setkání tady v této konferenční místnosti je plánováno na 12. hodinu, kdy bychom tedy měli začít další blok s názvem European Safety and Sustainable Agri-Food Sector. Takže my se podíváme rovnou na tuto problematiku a naším prvním hostem v dalším konferenčním bloku bude pan profesor Jaroslav Doležel. Ostatně o něm už také paní europoslankyně mluvila, tak jsme zvědaví na jeho příspěvek. Já vám všem děkuji za pozornost a za 30 minut se na vás budu opět těšit tady v sále. Díky.